Hi, my name is Shanna Landolt, and I'm the host of the Pharma and Biotech Thought Leadership Podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing Natalie Yeadon. Natalie is co-owner and managing director of Impetus Digital, the online customer advisory board experts. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about healthcare disruption. What does it mean, and what can it look like for pharma and biotech companies to actually have courageous conversations in an ad board setting and to create authentic partnerships with key opinion leaders? We're also going to be talking about Natalie's personal journey and some of the integration of disciplines that she's brought together that have really impacted her both as a business owner and as a thought leader in the pharma and biotech industry. We have a really exciting episode planned for you. So here we go with Natalie Yeadon. Natalie, welcome to the Pharma and Biotech Thought Leadership Podcast. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be speaking with you today, Shanna.
Great. Why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about Impetus Digital?
Impetus Digital, in the big picture, is really a catalyst, if you will, for progressive change in healthcare by convening stakeholders to get together and have courageous conversations, to talk about what I call the white elephants, to slay the white elephants and to make things happen and a change. And so we're really the conveners of those conversations. We have a platform that allows our stakeholders and our clients to engage very conveniently online. So really that is what we want to be doing and we aspire to do, is really healthcare change at the big policy level, all the way down to the brand level. And at the brand level, we're really talking about things like having those conversations with advisors through advisory boards, or collaborating with stakeholders to create things or documents or consensus papers with working committees. So we work through that whole scale, right from the brand level to, the big groups of people at the framework level. So we're really the catalyst for change.
Let's talk about change a little bit, because pharmaceutical and biotech companies have been doing advisory boards for a number of years, but you're doing something that's unique. You're actually causing healthcare disruption. So what does that mean, and what can it look like for a pharma or biotech company to have an advisory board meeting that actually causes disruption and makes something new happen?
Absolutely. I think it really starts with intention. I think the traditional way that we have engaged our key opinion leaders has been very much of the, I'm going to plan everything in the white ivory tower, sort of the group think concept, where we all go away somewhere and figure it out and then bring it or serve it up to our customers or our stakeholders, really for quote unquote buy-in. If you will, it's sort of a fancy way of selling to people. I think it's been very traditionally what I call one-off, very interactional consultancy meetings. Bring enough people to a room, throw enough stuff to the wall, and hope something sticks. And I think at the end of the day, the intention was buy-in, slightly on the verge of selling.
Right.
And I think the other thing is really, it was very, very brand-centric. I think now things have changed and evolved very much in a much more complex environment. There's so many more stakeholders. The issues are much deeper. It is an issue around value beyond actual drugs. And so it's an opportunity right now where our clients, specifically manufacturers in the life sciences space, are engaging with their stakeholders to solve some of these bigger problems that they really just can't figure out on their own. So by using the online platform, we're evolving that conversation for a single one-off consultancy into a trusting, authentic partnership. So the intention is, I'm showing you a bit of my Achilles heel. I actually don't have all the answers, and I need you to help me solve this. So bringing people in, partnering with them in an authentic way, and being able to help solve some of these bigger issues, like, why do we do clinical studies the way we do? Why, and again, the whole evolution of the snowball of, this is why the drugs are so expensive and we can't pay for them, and on it goes. And so funneling these questions, having these courageous conversations until it sort of seeps through and brings more and more interested parties, if you will, around the table. And what I really like to see here is that when you start having those conversations, you're actually inviting your tribe. It's other believers who are thinking the same way, don't really have their own voice, but really have a voice with the other people of like mind. And so really that is in essence what we're talking about is disruption. Everything starts with a thought, starts with a conversation, and really what we want to do is broker the authenticity of those partnerships using a really convenient online platform.
Now, it's interesting because tribal thinking and the word tribe is used in marketing a lot, and it's used in the entrepreneurial community. So if a pharmaceutical company or a biotechnology company is no longer thinking just from the perspective of how can I push my brand, sell my brand, and have it be about the brand, how does this tribe of people having, real, authentic conversations, ultimately, who does that serve or what does that serve?
It really absolutely does. I mean, we all know that we have moved from the mass production or blockbuster economy, and that goes across the board. It's not just a life sciences issue. It's really corporate wide. It's the new economy of connection. And so really what we are seeing here is what I like to use is leverage the idea of Uberization or the microbrewery concept of we have this big, huge beer market, and so how are we going to fit in? We're last to market. We're never going to get the market share. And so the interesting thing in the sort of the evolution of thinking, instead of going bigger, it's counterintuitive. The idea is to actually go smaller. And so really what you're doing is cracking the nut or opening up or subdividing that market into a super specialization or a niche. I mean, you're seeing this a lot happening with pharma, everything from personalized medicine to, the entry into rare diseases and oncology. So there is some of that semblance of thinking, but going into it intentionally from a marketing standpoint, instead of coming in and saying, we're a me too, we really only have differentiators based on very soft parameters, leverage those, create interesting new patient avatars, build your tribe of believers through physicians and other allied health care providers who see that and believe that, and help to, and that's the market that you own. You can gain 100% market share. This, again, is all theoretical, but the idea here is find your tribe, find out where it makes sense. How do you super niche yourself? Create that, own it, and really utilizing those great examples in the connected economy that we're in, and how to do that successfully.
So that tribe could be, a subset of patients or a subset of physicians or, people in a specific region, for example.
That's at the brand level, and I think taking it up a notch, as we were talking about the idea of, taking it up the food chain of, on the questions. And really, when we talk about complexity, it really is about the level of questions you're asking or the power of those questions. So if the questions are really at a brand level, that you're solving those specific issues. But when you start really asking those bigger questions, I mean, you're taking that up the notch of something more powerful and much more disruptive. And those are, like I was saying, everything from, what do physicians look like in the connected economy, or the empowered patient who basically have sensors and all sorts of diagnostics embedded in everything from their jewelry to their clothing. So, asking those questions, what does this look like? How do we pay for this? What does this mean? And so there are other people who are thinking that. And those are at the bigger level, the new tribe as well. People who, it takes one person to create change. Seth Godin calls it to create a ruckus.
Yes.
And so it just takes, one leader, one voice to sort of stir the pot and bring and attract the tribe of other believers.
Now, I'm curious because your business model is doing things exclusively or predominantly online. Is it exclusive or predominant?
It is predominant. I will tell you, I mean, the idea here is that we really want to enable our clients to have what we call continuous trusting touch points with their with their stakeholders. And so we called a campaign of interactions, sort of proactively mapping out when and where and how that's going to happen, why it makes sense strategically based on a whole series of milestones and other things that are going on through the year. And so a touch point could be something traditional, which is a live consultancy meeting. Impetus does those as well. It can be a web meeting, which is what you and I are doing right now, or it could be those asynchronous online assignments. So the combination of all of those is what we call a campaign. And so what makes it different is as opposed to it being reactive. A lot of times in the old paradigm, it's I need something, I react. I want something, I ask, and then it's over. There isn't necessarily the follow-up, even though sometimes it's intended. And this way, it is different. Even though it seems intuitive, it is difficult for people to think that way. It's like, what do you mean I got to think of a plan? You know, I'm actually engaging these people and asking them for real that I don't have the answers. And it's really quite interesting and exciting when I see that on people's faces is that, you know, I really, you know, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, that actually is the perfect thing to ask. That's the perfect set of questions in an asynchronous assignment. So it really is a different way of thinking.
Can you, without relating it to a specific brand or a specific client, could you give us some examples of questions that people, you know, might not know the answer to that they're asking in these meetings?
Yeah, I mean, it applies across the board, everything from startup companies to what we call legacy brands that are kind of close to loss of exclusivity. You know, a great example is, you know, a team that we work with where there were, you know, they were working on legacy products. They don't have sales forces. They don't have anything new. So then the question was, I really need to do something with this brand. We're kind of basically, you know, at the end of its life cycle, but it's still generating revenue. And, you know, we think there's still some opportunity, but I don't have anything to say. There isn't any new data. There's nothing new. And so what was really kind of interesting was putting that out there to the advisors in a very authentic and, you know, here's my Achilles heel, where here's the situation. What do we do? I know that it sounds so incredibly ridiculously simple, but people are so not used to doing that. And what was really interesting about this particular scenario was the advisors came back with some incredible gold nuggets that I was actually blown away by. I always use this as an example. Letting the client know that their product was actually, in fact, listed on a completely different therapeutic area protocols and guidelines.
Right.
And give the client some incredible direction about pivoting what they were doing, which I thought was a gold mine. So you never know unless you ask. I think that, again, it's the power of questions. It's sort of the Aladdin factor is like ask and you shall receive. So it is very, very powerful.
Well, that's exciting. And I acknowledge you for coaching your clients to be, you know, willing to be courageous and to ask things that they don't know the answer to and to ask something that might be obvious, because it's, you know, the pharmaceutical and biotechnology world is a very professional world where people are really smart and they're used to having lots of answers. So I think it's fantastic that you're doing this with your clients.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's as benign and as simple as that to leading people down a path of understanding. And sometimes that's even what the campaign could be. It's first of all educating them on some, you know, specific parameters around the product that might be beyond the standard efficacy and safety, helping them build you a, you know, a patient or you know, avatar, or, you know, creating some new methodologies for educating other professionals in the field. You know, and again, it can be very brand team specific. It would be interesting ideas and best practices of what they've seen other companies do around market access and regulatory submissions, and that's, you know, and patient advocacy. So it really is, you can be as creative as you like. It really starts, like I said, with the intention of authenticity and truly navigating and asking those questions. The other thing as well, too, that I'd like to add is I usually try to challenge a lot of our clients, especially at the brand level, to think a lot bigger than what we sometimes have been accustomed to through the traditional silos of this is my brand plan and my tactical plan, and this was what was approved, and I have to stick within these silos and these, these parameters around budgets and how I should be employing these strategies. And sometimes, challenging them to think a little bit, like I said, as a disruptor, taking that little pilot or that little challenge about doing that little tweak of something that they would never imagine or could see themselves doing. And that's asking like the bigger question, sort of sticking that out there, either within an assignment or just kind of sometimes putting the toe in the water, testing that, doing something beyond just the brand or the pill or what they've actually been socialized or to do within the confines of the corporate environment. Some people will step up to the table and try it. Others, sometimes unfortunately work within, there, some fear around doing that. But it is something that I often try to challenge people to know that they have the capability of doing something in a leadership role that way.
That's exciting. I'm curious about you personally, because you've taken a step that a lot of senior individuals in pharma and biotech, and I mean senior by way of hierarchy, will one day face, and that is, you worked at a director level and senior level in marketing and sales with companies like AstraZeneca and Genentech and Bristol Myers Squibb. And then just over 6 years ago, you decided to go out on your own and start your own company. I'm curious, what made you decide to take that leap?
It's a great question, and I will have to tell you, I'm extremely thankful. I have a lot of gratitude for the schooling, if you will, that I've had through the pharma industry. It certainly has polished me. It's given me a lot of credibility. It's really influenced my thinking and, how to work in teams and to lead. And so it's been an awesome experience. I will tell you that I do have a business partner who is awesome, complementary and very opposite to me, which is usually a great formula for success, Shanna Smith. I have to say, we met over lunch. She had actually started Impetus. I was leaving and starting my own consulting company. One thing led to the other, and we basically co-founded and really, established this. And really, I think the onus behind it was, I think deep down inside, when you take a moment, because a lot of times we're so busy, and I will have to say that I was very much into this space for many, many years, a bit disconnected from myself. I think I actually gave lip service, if you will, to, yes, I am connected, but I think really deep down inside, I wasn't really reflecting how I felt at any given time, or, I know it sounds corny, but living in the now, and you hear this all the time about what does that mean. And I will say that, there was these moments of reflection and really kind of being aware that I think I've buried my entrepreneurialism. I think there was a level of frustration, not that I didn't like leading from behind, but I just wanted to lead. Not that I didn't enjoy sort of, managing within the team environment and pulling the group together and moving in the forward direction at the speed of the group. But now I'm in a place where, I call it fire in the belly, and I can steam along as hard and fast as I like without being, impeded. So there's a lot to be said about that. The entrepreneurial space or the voyage is definitely not for everybody. You will know that based on your, trusting your gut reaction. But it certainly was the absolute right step for me. It wasn't something I just put a shingle out and did it. It's something I really believed in. It's something that really fits who I am. And I could never imagine doing anything else.
What was one of the biggest growth curves or learnings for you when you went out and became an entrepreneur?
I have to tell you, it would probably be putting the fear at bay. Fear is something, and I'm writing about this right now. It comes in so many different ways. It kind of leaps at us at different times in our life and how it appears to you and really how you interpret it. When you come from a very stable situation, we oftentimes call it the golden handcuffs of the pharmaceutical industry. A very stable position and good pay and all these other perks and bells and whistles. it's very difficult to suddenly say, oh my goodness, I'm basically, eating what I kill now. Sorry for the terminology there, but you really are on your own. And that's a scary prospect. Your immediate thought is, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm not going to be able to survive. I'm miserable at what I'm doing, and this is going to be the end of me. When you realize that you basically do that leap of faith, it really is the Pandora's box of hope that you suddenly tap into, and realize that this is something you can do. And so going into that with positive intention, with purpose, you can do anything that you really put your mind to, and you are capable of doing it, and you are not going to die. And so it's once I kind of went through that suddenly everything opened up, and it was a lot easier to do.
Fantastic. And it's interesting because I would actually say that the idea of the golden handcuffs of being in pharma or biotechnology is a little bit of an illusion, because in reality, there are mergers, there are acquisitions, products can go generic, and life changes. Or there could be a new CEO who comes into an organization, and all of a sudden the senior leadership team who's been doing fantastic is, finding themselves looking for work. So it's interesting that almost, everyone, when they deal with change, has to deal with that sense of fear. And what does that mean? But I'm just so thrilled to see you succeeding and delighting your clients, and the success that you've had.
I absolutely agree. And the last point I just want to make is it's really having people comfortable with extending their boundaries, or really the riverbanks that they actually function in. And I sort of attribute this, or use the metaphor of basically the dog who's being trained by the electric fence. We've all heard of the tale of you suddenly realize what your boundaries are when you got buzzed, or when you got nabbed for the first time, and that's you can actually use the metaphor of the compliance regulations, or hearing that somebody lost their job because they didn't do X, Y, Z, and so that's the electric fence. And so what I think is important here is sometimes pushing the boundaries on that, especially when the electric fence goes down or is temporarily deactivated. We still have the electric fence, at least mentally in our mind, about what we can and can't do. And so I think just, the call to action for a lot of people who are, long-term employees, is especially the ones who've entertained the idea but are too afraid to ever do something or change it, is sometimes just to kind of tap into and think to yourself, or ask yourself, am I living with the illusion of the electric fence? Is there more to this? Can I actually stretch and see that there is something outside in the periphery that I just haven't explored yet?
Now, this podcast is about thought leadership, and I want to move into something even a little bit more personal now. I do a lot of reading, whether it's magazines or books, and one of the trends that I've been seeing over the last few years is CEOs and senior people who are really successful have gotten into things like meditation and yoga, or a super early morning routine that just sets up their day for success. And I know when we were talking earlier, you actually have this routine that starts the moment you wake up. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. It's really quite fun, and to be honest with you, as weird as this sounds, probably one of the happiest moments of my entire day. I like to ideally do what I call bookmarking my day. So start off with this absolutely thrilling, exhilarating, enhancing experience, and then also to sort of try to cap it at the end of the day as well, just to make this a parentheses in the universe, if you will. But really, I call it my happy habits in the morning. And I know this is going to sound really bizarre to some people, but I am so motivated. I actually get up at 4:30 in the morning to do this. It's something, if you're not a morning person, it's something that you could probably eventually get to, but I really highly recommend it. I usually start my day with, going through a series of goals. I actually list all my goals and actually go through them methodically on every day. I also review, I do affirmations. I actually recorded my voice, and I do listen to them in my car. We are always thinking. instead of actually having negative thoughts in your mind, is highly recommend that you fill your mind with positive beliefs, and you will actually believe those positive affirmations. It's just if they're repeated enough. I do journaling in the morning, which I find probably one of the most beneficial things, and I highly recommend it. It gives you an opportunity to reflect on your previous day, reflect on emotions, things that you like to work on. Usually I recommend this to anybody that's close to me that I care for. And I do what I call a mental love note. It gives me an opportunity to care for somebody, even if I have no idea who they are, sort of to send them, if you will, a blessing. But I call it a mental love note. I have a vision board that I use every morning, and I do engage in some kind of reading or audiobook, as well as the fact that I work out in the morning. So it's very long, but I do get up really early so I can actually start my day. But it's a very fulfilling experience. I know you mentioned earlier the word discipline, and I really believe the idea of being disciplined and applying that discipline and the focus and living purposefully to everything you're doing, including what your personal mission in life is, beyond your job of just going in and checking the clock and coming home and somebody actually says, just staying in my swim lane and not causing a lot of problems. It's really incorporating that discipline as in, what is it that I want to change? What is it that I want to do? And so you'll see that when you start incorporating these happy habits, it does infiltrate everything in your life, both personally and professionally.
So it's very easy to see how that would impact you personally. You'd be a happier person, more confident, connected to what matters to you. Now I'm curious, how does all of that impact you as a thought leader in the pharmaceutical and biotechnology space?
This is actually going to sound a bit on the spiritual side, and depending on your listeners, they may not resonate with this, and that's fine. But I feel that there is a certain level of spirituality associated with what I do and what I think, and I really believe in the concept of the law of attraction. A lot of what I'm putting out there is coming to me, and so I put my intention about what it is I'm trying to create, what is it that I want to do. And as corny as this is going to sound, the how I'm going to do it, I actually oftentimes don't have that figured out, but it really just comes to me. And so what happens to me professionally is that these wonderful opportunities that I never imagined in a million years are coming to me fast and furious, sometimes almost feeling like a G-force where you can't actually handle everything that's coming at you. And so it really is an amazing experience when you're living with what I call congruency, when everything in your life feels a bit like an isosceles triangle and it just fits. So one doesn't impact the other. I mean, it's sort of the yin yang. It's sort of like the osmotic force between personal and professional. It just happens. And so it absolutely has, had effect on my purpose and, how I make decisions and, where I spend my time and my energy. So it has absolutely impacted, my business and our success as a company.
And I have to imagine at the end of the day, when you're putting that kind of purposeful thought and discipline and intention, and I'm even going to say kindness and love, that somewhere that has to translate to making a difference for patients. And I love that you're bringing that to your clients and to the marketplace in general, because it's so easy for pharma and biotech to feel depersonalized. And all of a sudden, with this approach, you can see, wow, there is something like a bigger purpose behind everything that you're doing.
That's actually a great point, Shannon. Thank you for bringing it to that place. And I know a lot of people who know me, because I am a bit of an IT nerd, will always use IT examples of what has happened out in the world. And, for example, YouTube has democratized how people make movies. And so suddenly, you don't have to be a Hollywood producer to be able to create, to become, a production manager or a a movie star or a superstar on video. Same thing with Uber is, they have democratized on how people, get into the taxi business. There is Zoocasa. There's just tons and tons of examples of the democratization. I even look at things like 3D printing. It's sort of democratizing how people manufacture products. So I really think at the end of the day, it always comes down to the people, the masses. When we think about the Uber example, governments would not have changed. They're not going to change anything. The taxi lobbyists and are not going to change. Where Uber became successful is it came from the people, from the masses. And so I think we're just at this incredible place in healthcare, ripe for disruption, but it's actually going to come from the masses, from the people, from the patients, from the caregivers. It's going to start with a thought, it's going to come with intention, but there is going to be a bubbling to the top, and that is actually where the change is going to happen. We oftentimes hear at summits and conferences that we're at, policy areas, in these meetings that we go to, who is the honest broker? At the end of the day, I really believe that it's going to be at the patient and the patient or the masses level. And so I'm very excited about that.
And then I have one final question for you. You've mentioned a couple of times, you've referred to your purpose. I'm curious, what's your purpose?
I really feel that I've been called to help with this change. You can call it a convener, an amplifier, a gatherer of these people, of these voices. I just feel that, all of the experiences, the learnings, my philosophical musings, everything else that I have done over the years, sort of in the desert for the last, 40 days, it's all kind of culminated to a place where I know that where I can actually use these skills, use my style, the fact that I'm, not afraid, if you will, of and sort of able to sort of challenge the status quo. So I just feel that I'm at that place where I want to be able to convene that change. How big that change is, I don't know, but I just feel that it's that's really what I feel like I need to do.
It's exciting. And then just finally, Natalie, if people want to reach you, if they'd like to work with you, what's the best way for somebody to connect with you?
Yeah, we have a website. It's www.impetusdigital.com. You'll be able to locate our contact email and phone number there. And we'd love to hear from you, even just to chat. We love speaking to people and just, talking about things. It doesn't even necessarily have to result in anything. I think, at the end of the day, it's not even about the money, it's about the change. It's about creating those conversations, really, really big on our helping to foster that paradigm shift in the world that we can influence, which is really about creating authentic partnerships. So I'd love to talk to you about that. So please feel free to reach out.
Well, this has been super exciting. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Pharma and Biotech Thought Leadership Podcast, and it's been wonderful having you here. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Shanna, for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Pharma and Biotech Thought Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Shanna Landolt. If you'd like some more information about the podcast, you can go to pharmabiotechpodcast.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Shanna Landolt. Here's to your success.